Welcome to the ServiceNow CMDB accuracy and dependency mapping integration with IP Fabric. So first, I want to go over what it is and why it matters before we go directly into the demo. First of all, it's an integration, right, between IP Fabric and ServiceNow's CMDB. So this is not about the ticketing enrichment, but simply the CMDB and specifically their network gear table. So IP Fabric validates that ServiceNow's CMDB network gear table is accurate because we know that IP Fabric's discovery is the most accurate on the market. And then it goes even further to sync and then visualize device dependencies, network device dependencies inside of ServiceNow, and we'll show that in just a moment. Now, why does this matter? Well, CMDB accuracy is foundational to the network, foundational to architecture, to planning, to troubleshooting, to governance. It matters for everything from SD-WAN to cloud migration to any other IT project you have going on. But these high-level four pillars are really what I want to go over. So from a compliance perspective, it allows us to catch inaccuracies before they become audit fines. From a security perspective, IP Fabric reveals hidden risks. So if there are missing devices, and there are always missing devices in our POCs that we've found in the current CMDB, and we find those missing devices and make sure that they then are populated into the CMDB so that they are for sure getting proper security policies and automation policies, et cetera, et cetera. For the flip side of the coin, cost, when there are stale records in the CMDB, meaning that those records still exist, but those devices are no longer in production, then it's still possible that companies could be paying maintenance fees, licensing fees on those devices, even though they're not in use anymore. And from an IT efficiency perspective, this all helps across the board, but I do want to just kind of go over that dependency mapping, which helps prevent unknown outages and prepare teams for change management. And we'll get into that a little bit more here now. Okay, so here we are inside of IP Fabric. I'm going to go to extensions and then click on my ServiceNow extension. And here I see what we're about to find out, right? So the devices in IP Fabric that aren't currently in ServiceNow CMDB, or the devices that are in ServiceNow, not in IP Fabric, or possibly they're in both places, but the devices have changed. The configurations look different. So then I can just simply choose the snapshot that I want to use. Generally it's going to be the latest snapshot, but you could do it for other snapshots as well. And then we'll connect to our ServiceNow instance. And now we see we have some other options. So we've automatically populated the staging table. We can say, do we want to show the diff right here? Do we want to write the diff to a file? We can select our diff source, whether we want that to be IP Fabric or ServiceNow. In this case, we'll leave it as IP Fabric. Dry run means that I can actually run this whole thing and see what it's going to do without writing anything to the ServiceNow CMDB. Now, if I leave that unchecked, it will in fact write new devices to the ServiceNow CMDB network gear table. We can specify time limit, record limit. If we want a verbose output, maybe there are some errors, we want to see more information, the insert limit. And then optionally, we can choose to include switch stacks, fabric extenders, and sync relationships. Now I'm going to go ahead and sync relationships because this is how that dependency mapping is built. You'll see that in just a second. So in ServiceNow, that dependency mapping is visualized in their UI, but it's populated with information from IP Fabric. Okay, now our sync is complete. And if we scroll down, we can actually choose which currency we're showing. So whether we're in Europe or North America or wherever we are, we can show the correct currency. Then we get an IP Fabric trust score. This is weighted based on, or the heavier weights go to missing devices in ServiceNow and change devices. So if they're simply maybe stale records, we didn't give much of a weight. Now we see a lot's change, which is why we have such a low IP Fabric trust score. So you see we have 4 phantom devices, 44 missing devices, and then 1 change device. And based on the total of devices in our lab, this is, a really low score because it's a lot of the lab that is incorrect. And then we've actually given an estimated potential business impact. So for every phantom device that was in ServiceNow, a stale record that isn't actually in production, we've said that's probably about $1,000. For compliance risk, we've said it's about $50,000 by default. And then for security risk, we've said it's about $100,000 per incident. Now, these are all changeable, and you can, raise that or lower that however you like, and it will then recalculate the information for you. And so then if we scroll down, we see the total potential business impact, $2.3 million here. And below that, we've actually chosen some spotlight examples. So here's an example of a device that's in IP Fabric and not in ServiceNow. An example of devices in ServiceNow, not in IP Fabric, and then an example of those changed devices with a little information below. Why does this matter? Well, attribute drift may hide patch or EOL gaps and increase incidental risk. Then you get into some more technical information, right? The total counts, of course, but then I can expand these expanders, get some more information on why this matters, but then I see the actual JSON code that tells me, okay, this is one device right here. This is the other device, right? We can see all of the devices through JSON. And of course, we can send those to to be included for automation workflows and things like that, if we don't automatically just push the config. So that's an option, of course, too. And now also included in this is the executive summary report. So it's simply an HTML file that we can open, and then we could print this off for our executives. And we see, all of that same information that I just went over, but in, a summarized report. Now, if I go into the ServiceNow tables, and let me just refresh this. So I see all of the devices that are now in here because we did push that config. We didn't just do a dry run. And the other thing I can do is actually go into these devices. Now, when I've gone into this device, I can see all of the fields that we can possibly populate, even if, some of this information comes from IP Fabric. And then down under related items, I see the level 1, level 2, level 3 connections to this device. Now, this shouldn't be confused with layers from the OSI model. These really are levels, the degrees of separation between devices. And even cooler, we can then see the dependency mapping visualized for us. And so here's the switch that I actually chose, and then here are all of the different devices that are connected to it. And of course, I can use this information then, let's say I'm updating the software for this switch, or I'm changing it out for some reason. I need to create a change management ticket to do that. But the change management team is going to want to know every device that's connected to it, which could possibly be impacted by an outage, especially if it's unplanned or, takes longer for it to come back. And then, of course, we can, derive more information from this, say, well, I know the application, our POS application lives on, this network, and so it might be impacted. So we can do some of that sort of thing here as well. That's all I have. Thanks everyone for watching.